Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I have a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
And I think today's episode 169 of Podcast 2 for 1, youtube.com/2for1 studios, the best place to consume the content. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. That way, you have to on all future episodes of Podcast 2 for 1, as well as all the cool content we have at 2 for 1 studios. And if you didn't know, and let's be honest, guys, you probably didn't. We are sponsored by Compile Comics, located at 4047 East Gill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. Now they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
Daniel, as we catch up on,
Yes,
all the things, we got Secret Invasion, we still got to watch Dial of Destiny, Spider-Verse.
Yep.
We've got Ahsoka around the corner. We have Oppenheimer coming out the next today. Yeah, today. We may be seeing it hopefully soon together. So there's a lot coming on the corner. But before we get into all those cool things, let's talk about some of the things in the news.
Okay.
One of them being a big thing is that SAG-AFTRA has decided to go on strike in conjunction with the Writers Guild of America.
Yeah.
So as I listed off all those cool things that we're going to have the review the next month, there might be a time, Daniel, sometime next summer, next fall, when Podcast 2 for 1 will have to be stretching pretty hard to find content to talk about. Might be lots of retrospectives, might be lots of Bruce Hutchinson podcasts, there might be lots of interviews. Because,
reviewing old TV shows or something. Because
we might have a drought coming pretty soon in the world of entertainment.
It seems impossible that there won't be, right? I mean, like no writers and no actors. I mean, technically reality TV may be still safe because I don't know if the actors on reality TV are SAG actors or if they have a different kind of agreement that they do that under. It is for us, for a podcast that kind of works on entertainment and new content coming out, new movies, new shows, new games. Well, there should be games are safe, so there'll be plenty of games. But it is. It's looking a little dire in the it looks like we're going to have at least a couple month drought if not more, if this strike takes a long time to resolve, and I think, it sucks for us as audiences and want to be entertained, but at the same time, it's this is the only way they're going to get what they want to, because 100%. They're depriving Hollywood of its money making stuff. Right. And so I am very supportive of SAG-AFTRA and the WGA strike. I think there's even some interesting things that they've, they're Fran Drescher, who gave kind of the speech at the beginning of the SAG strike, was talking about how it's bigger than Hollywood, this kind of movement. And I think they're right in that what SAG and WGA are fighting, which is the fact that CEO salaries have gone up 400% and writer and actor salaries haven't. You know what I mean? And then you've got these companies saying, "Oh, we're strapped for cash." You know what I mean? When they're giving CEOs $2 billion a year or something like that. I think it is this thing of this isn't just a SAG problem and a WGA problem. This is a nationwide, kind of a worldwide problem that most people that discuss about politics and even pro-capitalism people recognize this isn't great. This trend.
There's a lot to unpack there. I think one thing, it's weird when you do see that diagram or that visual image of 6 or 7 CEOs, and you look at it, you're that's annual, that's supposed to make annually. Which, to be fair, these guys are representing and controlling and making huge decisions on some of the biggest companies to have ever existed in the human race. Well,
and I think there's a valid argument on the other side that the CEOs is a competitive position. It's like paying for a quarterback in the NFL. If you want a good quarterback, you've got to pay the going rate for good quarterbacks. There's not a quarterback that could be making $50 million a year and decides, well, just because I like your team, I'll go for $10 million. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen. In the same way with Disney, it's if you want one of the best CEOs in the world, you got to pay him more than almost every other CEO in the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's not, it's a difficult predicament where, like, I completely agree with the opinion of the strikers. I hope, in fact, that their movement kind of spreads to other industries that could use that same kind of sentiment, right? Because it's like, okay, like, sometimes you think of what could stop the capitalistic machine that is America since like the 80s, and it's like, well, if all of a sudden no American could get like their weekly entertainment dose, or you know what I mean, if they couldn't get their weekly escape for whatever TV show or movie or whatever they like, that's gonna cause some unrest. You know what I mean? And so it's I am completely ignorant of pretty much all of the details of this whole thing. And in some, like, I feel like some days it just feels like when will they find a compromise? Like sometimes it feels like they are so far apart when you look at the comments that the CEOs are making and you look at the comments that like the strikers are making. It's like, are we going to go a year without Hollywood or something like that, or 6 months? Like, is that possible?
I think
it's an interesting environment.
I think you're right in the fact that the devil's in the details, and we don't know much of any of those in a intelligent way to kind of talk about for an hour and a half or whatever.
No, we do know. I mean, we do know like the AI stuff. We do know that the studios wanted to
some things.
Wanted to capture background actors and pay them $200 one time and have the rights to use their image and like their animated image forever. And like that is stupid. That is the horrors that AI look. That is when you look at AI, like, what is the worst this could do to our like jobs and how people are, treated as workers. It's like, that's exactly what everyone's afraid of. You know what I mean?
Well, I think, a couple of things just real quick. I was going to say, like, I think it might be wise for us to bring on like a Jess Carson if she's available.
Oh yeah.
Because she's someone that's on the picket lines and who is fighting a good fight for hopefully other writers in the future and those kind of things. So I think she might be someone to come on if she's got the time to give us insight. Maybe we can have some people drum up questions from at least from the Arkansas film community, be like, because that's the thing is too, like, not everyone does a lot of research, and also not everyone. Right. I mean, even I can read it all day long, but it doesn't mean I'm still going to understand it and have the nuance that someone like Jess will have. So it'll be good to maybe bring her on, and maybe if she's free, and then have other people ask her questions, and we can kind of maybe relay that back in some way. But you're right. Real quick, let me do a big cut. I'm sorry. I think the AI thing is one of the most. It felt like in the beginning with the writer strike that was a ticking point in terms of it didn't feel like the biggest one, but it feels like now it's like becoming one of the bigger things of conversation. It's a perfect storm too, with like Chat GPT and then things that we're seeing in other corporations and how they're trying to utilize things.
Well, there's it is this kind of worldwide phenomenon, right? Because AI, like within the last 6 months, became the biggest thing in the world. Like, it became the thing that everyone was predicting is going to change everything. And I think at some point they may be right, but I think everyone got too eager on it. I know there was a post actually in our work Slack today about the other day about someone on Twitter talking about how ChatGPT is getting markedly worse. Like, it's getting more incorrect. It's getting less accurate. Like, it's this thing of like, it's this thing of like, whatever they've been doing or whatever, it's actually getting the algorithm, the intelligence of it is decreasing. And and so it's this thing of like,
they don't know why. They don't know who's feeding it what.
I think they suspect, because they're not the owners of it, but they suspect it has to do with something with the way they're trying to, like, instead of having one giant AI like that they have to like keep running, there's like 4 smaller ones that add up to the same strength of a big one, but somehow that's making it worse. This is an outsider talking about it, right? They all they know is the data, and like there've been people researching it with like very like systematic ways to test accuracy with these things, and like it's declining. And so we're at this interesting point where like we're on the cusp of an AI revolution, right? It may take 10 years to really get here, but like in terms of like human history, it's not that long. And that's affecting everything. And I agree, like, the WGA, yes, there was a lot of like, there were sticking points I remember reading about, like, they didn't want, if a producer used an AI to come up with a movie idea, that producer couldn't then decide, well, I'm the creator of this idea, and now you write it for me, but I'm the story by credit.
I'm the story by guy.
Right. Right. And they're like, no, that's stupid. Like, no. And then the writers' rooms, the mini rooms was a big thing that they're trying to fight.
It's a huge
but
deal.
with SAG, it feels like AI is like one of the most important things we're talking about. Because I mean, and listen, we're seeing it. Like, did Christopher Reeves give permission to have his appearance used? I'm sure they used a lot of AI to help him look like that for the Flash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? His estate did.
His estate did, but the fear though too. Yeah, I mean, let's just kind of dive into a little bit of this too. You're right. Let's back up to the background thing. So, how many actors that are famous now were background actors when they first started? Here's a great example.
Most of them that weren't just royalty of Hollywood, that weren't like which technically Nicolas Cage was. I mean, he was a Coppola, but like he chose his own route.
Sure,
but like you're right. Like actors that get discovered, they've usually been doing background work a lot too.
Yeah. And so he's in the background of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Harrison Ford is in the episode of Gunsmoke, back in the 60s or what I say, late 60s. And then also, and he's like just a henchman guy. Harrison Ford's also in American Graffiti before Star Wars. Yeah. And it's not until, so can you imagine, part of it too would be, let's just go down the rabbit hole. Yeah. Paramount buys Daniel Wingfield their face for $200 a day for a background extra. First of all, you do like 4 or 5 of those people, and then you have 4 or 5 faces that you can just populate hundreds of thousands of people for army shots, for background stuff. And then on top of that, you have the faces. Don't even know if you need them, honestly, because you can just do eventually photorealistic CGI. So we're going to get there anyway in some way. But tons of people make their living being a background extra. They're getting paid. I don't know what it was then or what it was now, whatever, but $400 to $500 a day to be a background guy. And
that is a viable route to an acting career. I mean, like, you're on enough TV shows as a background actor. Hey, we need a line now. Well, we're going to bump you up to a day player. Now you got a line. And like, that's the beginning of the career of like actually,
or you're stand-in. You're stand-in.
I mean, like, you're really,
you end up actually giving a good line delivery or something. Yeah.
Yeah. If this went into effect, it would just be like the nepotism problem of Hollywood just get worse, because the only people that would just get in are the sons and the children of the people that have always been in. Tom Hanks' son, or like, these people that like, they're gonna get an opportunity based on their family. It has nothing to do with anything else. That is like a scary reality. It's like this reality where you think, eventually does Hollywood just want to make movies with just computer people, like no humans involved in this production? You know what I mean? They're gonna be cheap as hell.
I've been saying for a while, well, maybe not. These movies are godly expensive. And it has to be the visual effects, which I won't talk about in a second. Yeah. But there's a version, Daniel. There's VR, and then there's the holodeck, right? Where you can walk into a room that's perfectly designed and indistinct. It's the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. We may be in the Matrix too. Everyone, just keep in mind, this podcast could be a algorithm trying to tell you you're in the Matrix, breaking through some way to your brain, and you just don't know it just yet. So, that being said, but there's the holodeck version, and there's also the version where you go into a program like, let's say, Adobe Premiere, or we'll call it Adobe Holodeck, and you type in the focal length you want, what actors you want, the camera framing, the set design, and you hit a button, and it, like, kind of like ChatGPT or these Mid-Journey AIs, it populates you a scene that's 30 seconds long that has characters acting with a combination of Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy's voice.
Exactly.
And
you just get to like make notes, like, hey, make this line, more firm.
You type in a description. Now, the key there would be having great descriptions, right? But that's the thing too, is like, so that's the world that could eventually lead to. But another
it's essentially a one-man video production, right? Like, that's one person doing 99% of the work.
Yeah. Funny enough. Yeah. Well, then you get to a place where then you have an AI. Maybe they are doing this. Maybe AI are CEOs, but you have a place where you have you have an AI, and you say, AI, your task is to look at all thousands of the Warner Brothers catalog, and then deem what's the most commercially successful, and then write 5 movie Adobe Holodeck prompts to make us 5 movies in the next 5 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just the level you keep inceptioning yourself with AI and what could happen. We're going to get to something like that someday, and there'll be a bubble and there'll be something else that people will have to go to that's not movies anymore or whatever that gets something.
Yes.
Or we'll just
I
become
don't
like
think
vegetables. I don't know.
I don't believe that like the idea that the public would be content with those kinds of productions eventually, that's all they'd want. I don't buy into that. I think there is an element of mass production versus handcrafted here, right? And like the typical movie experience is more handcrafted. It's creatives in powerful positions that have a lot of control, have their hands in every pot, and are making sure they have the best people in every position. You know what I mean? Like that's a much more. It's not a automatic experience.
Well, the critically lauded things that come out this year movie wise is like a John Wick, where it's almost all practical and it's like, deep staging. It's not, there is CGI involved. But then you have things like Spider-Verse, where it's like you're breaking new ground, new technology, showing things that haven't been shown before. Mission Impossible, where it's all about they showed the stunt a year ago, like prepping featurettes a year ago of Tom jumping off this mountain. And so it becomes about the process of making the movie.
Where Oppenheimer, where it's
detonating nuclear. We were detonating nuclear bombs.
I saw a post on Reddit. I don't know if this is true, but like that the IMAX film reel for
200
Oppenheimer
pounds, or 2,000 pounds
was like 11 miles long or something like that, or something like.
Apparently bled over the largest like IMAX can, like the deck, right? That the deck is on there. They splice the film together. It's like hanging over it, which means like, I assume as it's really, you're going to have someone like kind of pick it up and like help it move as you get closer to the movie.
It makes me nervous about like small town IMAX theaters that's like can't do that well.
One's going to break. Well, there's only like 7 locations that are doing it. One of them being like the Universal Santa Monica that I've attended in or not Santa Monica, and Universal Studios. Like there's like 7 of them that are actually doing the IMAX film, and those feel like they're designed for that kind of thing. It's the novelty of it, right? But you're right, you're getting those kind of niche people, but I mean, if you look at it though, think about it this way too, Daniel, is that as the upcoming generation comes up, it's becoming easier to be content creators. It's in the ideas, and rightfully so in a lot of ways. What's the easiest, what's the quickest way, and what's the most fruitful way to make money? And to become successful without doing the hardships of the previous generation. Right. That's kind of always the going pattern. And you're going to have people who are going to lynch on like Tom Cruise and Christopher Nolan, but these guys are also in their 60s and 70s. And so these guys are of a dying breed that are still, hey, I hope we have them forever and I hope people replace them. But eventually you're going to have people who are going to come up and going to be like, press that button and give me that Luke Skywalker movie that I wanted 20 years ago.
You're right. I mean, there's enough people online that think the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was good that I believe you. You know what I mean? That's like, that's all you needed from this. You know what I mean?
There's enough people to at least vote it for an Emmy for best limited series.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So if that doesn't tell you where we're going, nothing else will.
I will say, just commenting on Tom Cruise and this whole situation, he's not very popular in the SAG circles. For one, because he hasn't been picketing. But for two, he's like been trying to get permission to keep promoting his film during the strike, and they're like,
I didn't know that.
Apparently he requested permission, and they said, basically maybe if you join the picket line, and he's been like non-committal. You know what I mean? So, Tom Cruise is this weird position where he is an actor, but he's also like a producer, almost more than actor these days, right? Like he is kind of a part of the
Mission Impossible 1 was his first producing movie, which is 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago. So, or 34 years ago, I don't know. But I mean, it's interesting. Not 34. It's interesting. That's an interesting one. If he was smart, he would have picketed. He would be picketing right now. And I get it. But that's the thing too, is like time is money, and like obviously COVID. It's funny because Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 was hit with COVID, and that obviously ballooned the budget. And now we have this, and the writer strike and the actor strike is happening. To be fair, they typically just, the last few of these Mission Impossible movies, they just write or they just shoot stuff without a script. But it's like, I don't know how that worked. It's like, if you're designing a set piece, aren't you writing the story through action? I don't know the
Yeah.
like you're creating a set piece narratively that's in the story, but is it on paper? Is it not on paper? I don't know how. I don't know that's a complicated one.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, it's complicated. I don't know what's going to happen, dude. We're like the writer's strike is gearing up on month 3, and
Which
we're
is
like
wild. It's already been
we're
that
a
long.
week. Yeah, we're a weekend to this, and the thing is too. You know, you brought up a point of like, how long is it going to last? And the sad reality is, someone's going to give, and typically whoever gives is the people who don't have as much money.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, it feels like just a very volatile time in the entertainment business where it could go a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And some of them would be good and some of them would not be good. And it definitely feels like this will be a defining moment in terms of the future of Hollywood, right? In terms of what Hollywood continues to grow into, because Hollywood has already changed a lot in like 10, 15 years. I mean, the Hollywood we grew up with as kids is not there anymore in many ways. And
well,
so
I mean, just even talking about the mini
would
rig
look
kind
like
of
in 10,
situation.
15 more years. And this decision, this moment will very likely define maybe the next
100%.
couple decades of Hollywood in general.
If we ever can get into the industry in a significant way, then what's happening right now is going to affect us, our family, you and me, our friendship, everything in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It will affect our entire lives until we're dead. So I think it's super important. I stand with both. I stand with both of them, of course.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm not out there right now is because I'm not part of the union.
Is there not a lot of SAG people in Enid, Oklahoma? Do they have an office? Okay.
There's not. I wouldn't even know where to go pick it, honestly. But
I know. Just in front of a movie theater, maybe. Yeah, but Enid doesn't have one.
Enid doesn't have a movie theater. Yeah, so we don't have we don't have nothing, guys. I can go pick it in front of. You can buy a Blu-ray at Walmart.
Is there a Netflix kiosk anywhere?
I don't.
Or a Redbox kiosk anywhere?
I think there might be a Redbox at Walmart. That's my plan.
There it is.
I've changed my mind. I'm going to pick it. Are you sure you want to rent that movie? Are you sure the writer? Yeah. Are you sure, lady who doesn't know anything about the strike going on? But there's and just be clear here, just because we're not doesn't mean you can't. You can obviously. There's tons of people out there right now picketing that have. There's actors that were picketing with the writers before the actor strike, and there's people who went internationally to kind of bring up your point about the American affecting the rest of the world. People were traveling from Canada and from across other places because you're right. What we're doing here in America is going to signify what can or can't happen to other places of the world.
Right.
So they're looking to us to set an example. And here's a question. We never really talked about it with our Secret Invasion podcast, but the opening credits from what there's some backlash, right? Initially that was made by that AI. And it sounds like the visual effects or the art department, whatever, come out and said, like, we use an AI algorithm to get a certain look, but every image that was altered with AI was from our design team. And that seems appropriate. Where AI is a tool and you're not copying someone's work. So I feel like I feel like that's right. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't have all the details, but
it's the system. We use AI sometimes in our work, in our day job. We use,
it's weird. Yeah, we do use it. I'm using AI right now to upscale a movie for my own personal watch that hasn't even had a Blu-ray release. I'm upscaling to 4K. Really cool. I'm removing noise. I even did a small color correction to it.
Wow.
And so
that's cool.
It's been exporting since 8:00 last night. Yes. So almost for over 12 hours, and it's like 23% done.
Wow. Yeah.
Anyway, fun facts, everybody.
Yeah. No. So as a tool for creatives, AI has limitless potential, in my opinion.
It does.
Almost. As a replacement for creatives, no. I think that's the fear, right? Like that's the fear when that credit sequence started, is like, oh my God, they didn't pay a VFX team. They just, some producer got on ChatGPT, or whatever these things, and just created this, and like that they cut out workers. in order to do it this way, which isn't true. It seems like the VFX company said, no, we did. I mean, as the same amount of people worked on this as they work on anything else we do, right? I'm pretty sure they specifically said like no jobs, like no one was replaced by this process. Everyone was still here that does it. We got paid the same amount. We just use this as a tool to get a look. And I think that's great. Yeah, you're right. I think, but again, like what the SAG, what the WGA are fighting is like, and what I think would eventually happen with just the tides of capitalism and the way that, CEOs, their job is to make the most money for their investors, full stop. And if they believe that they can do that by replacing creatives with a program, they will do it in an instant because that serves their goals, right? And so I think that is the thing. And personally, I also believe that, like, just as a personal, I guess, theory of humans and what we like to consume, I don't think that it could successfully do that. I think if AI took the place of creators, entertainment would get markedly worse and just markedly just less interesting. And like there wouldn't be Sopranos anymore coming on TV. There wouldn't be The Wire and Breaking Bad because, you know what I mean? Like, and so I think, yeah, it's just, it's an interesting time for all of this. I think, it could land a lot of different ways and a lot of different ways in the middle too,
I was listening to Script Notes and Craig Mazin was talking, I believe, with Ryan Johnson actually and John August, and they were discussing like they were feeding Chat GPT prompts and Ryan and like with like Knives Out characters and just kind of seeing what it gave them, and they were discussing the merits of it as it sits right now. And I think Craig hit it on this. It's like it kind of takes away, if you do like a script, let's say for Chat GPT, it's like the bare bones of mediocrity. You know what I'm saying? It's like it kind of makes everyone start at the middle. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
But it doesn't. There's no way it's going to propel you to a Ryan Johnson or a Craig Mazin. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to have you have to be a lived experience, a human. And then the thing is, it's regurgitating information. It's not. It's really complex, But I think it's not there yet. It might be someday. But that's the thing too. Is like, you can look at an image and be like, I want Todd McFarlane art, but I want this thing. And then it's like, well, does Todd McFarlane get any residuals from that? And are you selling it? Is it for personal use? Is it for fun? Like, how does that work? And then it feels like there's going to be, because you can even like, I've seen people do some crazy things where like, I want a song by Rihanna, but it's this song but by Rihanna, and
I've seen one with like Pearl Jam. It
sounds pretty damn good for considering where we're at with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you have people doing like deep fakes of politicians and then doing the deep fake of the voice, and then you have people using that to make like, I can sit here and do I can make a pretty convincing, if you gave me just one day, probably a convincing Donald Trump speech in front of a rally with like Fox News headlines. I could have all that built and I could share it with people in my family. And they'd be like, he actually said that? I'm like, yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And I could have them believing for a long time that that actually really happened. So we're getting into a lot of crazy things that there's going to be happening, a lot of regulations that will probably dip down. The thing is too, not until there's like a Biden or a Trump or something where this happens and it affects people in a really negative way, where they're either through death or through war or something like that, then they'll get involved and like, well, we can't have this or whatever. So
yes,
it's on the horizon, so to speak. It's an interesting topic. Yeah,
it is. I mean, I do think it is like, this is one of the most significant breakthroughs in technology that we've seen in our lifetime, probably. Maybe the most, maybe besides the internet, like the widespread, or maybe social media was a huge turning point in our society.
We as a generation have been hit with so many radical changes. Yeah. It's hard, almost unfathomable to keep up with. Like if you just if you look at like 20 years of increments of human history, you look at our 30 years, your me lives, like so much has happened in our 30 years compared to other humans, generations.
We're one of the last generations that will remember, or like, I guess, we're one of the last generations that remembers what life was like before social media and then after. and then what
Yeah.
life was like before the pandemic and then after. You know, yeah, you're right. And even just now, what life will be like before AI took over
Dude,
and
I
after.
didn't even consider the pandemic. So that's
Yeah,
exactly. It's just like
right.
when you can't even remember the fucking pandemic that happened
Yeah,
a year or two ago. You're
yeah,
like, damn. I'm not saying we have a hard life or anything. Some would argue we do, but I'm
yeah,
just saying like a lot's happened to us in
yeah.
terms of just
A lot of culture
change.
change and
A
societal
lot.
change, and yeah, and like I do think like when you think about the potential of AI, I mean, it
That's
is like
scary.
AI is what would be powering the holodeck, right? Like AI would
I would
be
assume.
an integral part of eventually building a holodeck is being able to create things that could create realistic characters that one for one seem human, you know, just all these kinds of things. And so like, yeah, it is this thing where like, because AI's been around a while. This is not actually new, but the level of AI intelligence and the level of availability to everyone to access it is,
The availability is the thing because like I go on Midjourney every couple of weeks and just seeing
yeah,
the improvements just in a couple of weeks is like astronomical.
yeah,
Of like just seeing how there's I mean and I have scratched the surface of it, but just seeing the subgroups in the
yeah,
culture now. It's like a
yeah,
Reddit for AI, and then it's like just them constantly as a hobby
yeah,
trying to make it better and
yeah,
better and make it indistinguishable from other things, and it's incredible. And I do think part two things. I think one, the kind of like we were seeing with maybe our job and some other
yeah,
places, it feels like maybe some other previous jobs we had too, where it's like there's something happening in the stratosphere, and it's like that's the new thing. We got to put all our focus into that. That's
right.
going to change the entire world. Blah blah blah. And then it feels like it's also at the same time not in some ways. It feels like it's not
Yeah.
as big of a deal. In
Well, I
some
think
ways it was, and ways it's another.
it just got a little, I think the hype cycle came on too quick. I think it was like literally 6 months ago, everyone figured out that Chat GBT was game changer. And then like you had whole businesses then like coming up based around Chat GPT, or like, you know, they
Yeah.
hold new business like programs or apps or like ventures that are based around AI and Chat GPT. And I think what we're seeing now is that like we're not quite there that you can just rely on it without a lot of human oversight, without a lot of fact checking, without a lot of, you've still got to bring a lot of human element to make this usable almost in any
Yeah.
context, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it is that thing of like people got excited because they realized, oh my God, I can just do this instead of my job, or like, you know what I mean? I can just, you know, use this and make bukus of money without doing anything. And now it's just kind of like, oh wait, it's not yet. I mean, it will get there. Like we're maybe 5 years away, maybe longer from like that being it. I mean, we already know that like Elon Musk and a bunch of people asked them to stop training Chat GPT over like GPT 6 or 7, which 4 is the one that's available right now. So you're thinking about how much smarter GPT 6 and 7 would be, and they're like, stop training them because we're afraid of Skynet, essentially, until we figure some shit out. Like it's gonna get there. We're just not quite there. Yeah.
I mean, again, you know, I saw Elon Musk. I don't want to see him was at South by, and he surprise appearance at the Westworld panel about AI,
Yeah.
and that was 5 years ago. And he's like, "That's the biggest threat to civilization." If you watch Mission Impossible, it's AI. The new one that comes out, it's about AI.
Oh, well,
Which
we're gonna get a lot of AI centric stories coming up, like the
Mission
apocalyptic
Impossible
ones,
got lucky where it's
the
like
good
it kind of
ones.
hit it at the right time too.
It did.
It was in the zeitgeist. It's been around for like 5-6 years. The thought of it's been around since '84. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
Terminator. You know what I'm saying?
But it's getting more real. It's getting more like oh
We're
my
getting-
God, I can see this happening in the next 50 years. Like literally, if we didn't do things right.
So yeah, two things. One is it felt like we had like an apex of hype for a second.
Yes.
And I think that it's now it's here to stay. It's not going to go away for right now. So we're going to have to adapt in a lot of ways. And if people in our industry specifically don't adapt, they're going to fall off quickly, and they're going to get another job or something that doesn't require it.
Yeah.
And that's going to affect everything we do from here on out. The other thing is, I don't know. I mean, it feels like it's a pretty big deal in terms of who's to say what our lives will look like in 50 years from now? If we can get that
right,
far,
or what humanity looks
astro-
like in
or
general.
what humanity
Yeah.
looks like in
Yeah.
general. So
I
we're
mean,
at
because
this weird, yeah.
you can totally see like a future where it basically becomes Wall-E, right? Where like humans
Yeah.
don't have to work at all because they've automated everything, you know. And so like, what does that do to humans as a race? Like, what would that change?
There's a
about
movie
us or-
called Bruce Willis did, I think 15, 20 years ago, called Surrogate. And it's like they get into these pods
Yeah.
and it's like Wall-E in the sense, but they get into like like people like, you know, he's going ball, whatever, but they control like a robot version of themselves.
Yes.
That's like better looking, it's got all
Perfect,
their
yeah.
hair in shape, whatever, and then everyone is, you know, they're interacting. It's like Ready Player One, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's interacting online, and not, I mean, which we're doing already. It's already happening. We just don't have the capability to feel it
Yes.
and to
I mean,
have a fully realized world yet. But we're
there are already
doing
people that identify as like they live their life online in like AI chat rooms and like VR chat
Yeah.
rooms. Like that,
Yeah.
that's their social life. That's where their friends are,
Yeah.
and they only interact with people as this kind of persona. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're talking about basic level technology right now. So yeah, you're right. I mean, like that's only going to extrapolate to more
yeah.
extreme versions of that when the technology can support it. I mean, yeah, we are getting close to where people can lose their lives in holodecks and like, you know, go into a coma and never come out because they're just living.
I mean,
a different life.
even think about this is going a little farther than film here in entertainment. Think about like men plugging into a thing and having whatever robot sex or something.
Yeah, no, yeah,
You know
just
what I'm
having
saying?
a wife that is AI. You're married to an
That's
AI,
AI.
program. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, that's coming.
It's coming.
They're going to have to eventually make regulations on if you can marry computers. I mean, that's going to come up soon.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then it's like, well, look at the consequences of that. So you have a guy who is single, who makes a lot of money, who doesn't have to spend money on kids or a wife or whatever, or on himself so much, and they're plugged in, and so you get all your dopamine fixes from a computer, right? I mean, it's hard. I mean, there is problems with like, you know, people watching like procrastination monkey. You know, instead of you know, writing that book, I'll go masturbate real quick because I get a quick dopamine fix, right?
Right.
So it's like amp that up to 1,000 when you're like, oh, I can go have sex with a supermodel, you know, and
I can live in this world and pretend the other one doesn't exist.
100%.
And just kind of get lost in it. Yeah, no, I mean, there's already some great, interesting movie ideas, you know, coming out of even this discussion of like, what does that look like if humans can get all of the human interaction that they typically need other humans for from programs? What does that change about society? Then what do we do then when we meet real people in their life? Like, you know, like there's some interesting, you know, just like that, and I guess I'm not too worried about that future because I feel like there will be enough humans that just want the real thing because they know it's real. And there will always be something in the back of your mind telling you, this is great, you're getting everything you want, but is that actually here? You know what I mean? Like, and so I think, it's just, we're living in interesting times. You know what I mean?
I can think of I feel like maybe not every, but I can think of a lot of different permutations of like, I could see a group of people being tribal and being plugged in, like this is our identity and this is us. And, and you can't, and then those people who are like, you know, you got to support this way of life and stuff, right? And like and I don't want to go out and get a job, or I don't want to do this because this is how I want to be. And then another group of people are like, no, you need to be in the real world, you got to be in this. And then it's like these group of people, you know, I don't know, you could just go 1,000 different ways with it. You could do these people like just banning technology and banning
you could have a civil war about AI eventually.
About AI. I mean, like there's 1,000 things you can do with this, you know, and like it's interesting. I'm not saying one's better or worse or wrong or not. I'm just saying that there's 1,000 ways this could go.
Yeah. And eventually we'll probably make an AI that has consciousness probably too, right? Like that'll be the next. Like eventually if we can make
already.
I mean, I literally was just watching Star Trek last night with my wife, and it's the episode of TNG called Measure of a Man, where basically Star Trek wants to take Data, who's an android, and just disassemble him. They basically want to treat him as property and not have like he's not, you know, they're comparing him to a toaster on the show. Oh, it's so good. And then like
Measure of a Man.
Picard's like argument is like, well, he's talking to this guy. He's like, how do you define sentience? And he's like, well, self-awareness, consciousness, these kind of things. And like Picard basically shows, well, he has all those things. So how do you know he's not sentient? You know what I mean? And like eventually, like, how do you know he doesn't have a soul when you don't even know if you have one?
Yeah.
This kind of argument. And it's like, we're not that far away from that being a real life occurrence.
The big fear, Daniel, is it's like Skynet, right? Where you don't know you think you think it's you don't know it's self-aware until it was for a long time, and it's been plotting.
Yes.
Again, there was a strong argument from
all that AI has to do to figure that out is watch Terminator. You know what I mean? Like we gave them the plan. We've given them the blueprint.
Yeah, lots
do
of
that.
Them. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, like look at Ultron and Avengers. It's like humans are a parasite on a potentially a breathing, habitable world. Yeah, like where it's there's an argument that the world's alive, and we're just a parasite that helps clean off the world and a fungus, and all the ways that biology works. And what's the most detrimental thing to the planet? It might be humans. Yeah. And so Skynet might want to take care of that. You just don't know. Yeah. It's wild, dude. I think we'll get some bad or good answers before we die. I think that.
Oh, I do too. I mean, like,
which is also kind of exciting because like we're on the precipice of like, I mean, of human history of like all these radical things happening, and it hasn't been a boring time since we've been here.
No, not boring. Sometimes very stressful and difficult. I mean, like, you're like, wow, we could really be there for the end of the human race. We could be there that day. You know what I mean? Whether it's a nuclear apocalypse or it's an AI apocalypse.
That's just one. That's one bad outcome. Yeah, that's not even talking about. I watched Interstellar. That's actually a real problem. Blight. Right. Then climate, and then fucking nuclear. Wars,
but here's my optimistic viewpoint. At some point, AI will help us figure out how to take care of the planet, and that will be like the utopia version of how all these things end up. Right?
Let's end on a good note, Daniel.
Yes,
I like that.
Yes. Yeah. The AI. This is the reason I love watching Star Trek. Right? Like I saw a Redditor describe it as competency porn. It's this idea that like everyone that's in charge is competent, is smart, is qualified, is empathetic, and a good person. Like that's the world of Star Trek. Is like everyone that's the leader is actually good at it and should be there, and they're doing good things. And like so like that's what I'm gonna hopefully predict, that like AI actually gets us closer to the Star Trek reality of humanity.
Yeah. Hey, that's the title of our episode is Competency Porn and the Struggles of AI.
I love that. So, yeah.
So that's our title of our episode. Perfect. All right, man. Well, hey, how can listeners write into us?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly. Let us know what you think of the AI revolution. Are you in our camp where you see it, going lots of different ways? Maybe you're a person that thinks, you know what, this is, just the next internet. It'll be big for a while, but then it just becomes standard and like no one even thinks about it as a revelation anymore. Who knows? Let us know at bit.ly/2for1mail.
And if you are an AI algorithm that is self-aware, let us know in the comment section below when you do write us in, like just a little tag at the end of it, like, hey, I am AI or something like that, just so we can figure it out ourselves.
Yes.
And if you can't do that, you can always find us in the comment section below, youtube.com/2for1 studios, the best place to consume the content. Daniel, what a great episode. We had no idea an hour ago what we were going to talk about, and then we end up devolving into AI.
It was an invigorating conversation,
It was. I think we need to bring on someone who's a little more in tune with the writer's part of it before us.
Yeah.
And we can I think it'd be a great conversation where we can do lots of learning.
Agreed.
My name is Donovan Thompson.
I am Daniel Wingfield.
And we have spoken.